On a freezing December night in Chicago, a homeless man died alone on the streets, while his millionaire son slept in a penthouse just 3 miles away. But before that final breath could be taken, Jesus Christ appeared to both men in the same moment, and what he revealed would expose a betrayal so profound that it would shake the foundations of everything they thought they knew about love, family, and redemption. Chicago in December is unforgiving. The wind whips off Lake Michigan like frozen knives, cutting through clothing, flesh, and bone. Temperatures drop to single digits. Snow piles up in dirty mounds along the streets. And for those without shelter, without warmth, without hope, it becomes a death sentence. On December 18th, on a particularly brutal night when the wind chill dropped to -15 degrees, 2 men existed in the same city but in completely different worlds. One man, David Thornton, 68 years old, sat huddled in a doorway on West Madison Street, wrapped in newspapers and a filthy sleeping bag, his fingers turning blue from frostbite, his breath coming in ragged gasps as hypothermia slowly shut down his body. 3 miles away, another man, Marcus Thornton, 42 years old, reclined in his climate-controlled penthouse apartment overlooking Millennium Park, sipping a glass of wine that cost more than most people's weekly groceries, reviewing financial reports that confirmed he'd just made another $1 million that quarter. David and Marcus were father and son, but you wouldn't know it from looking at them. You wouldn't know it from their lives. You wouldn't know it from the 15 years of silence that separated them. This is the story of how a son abandoned his father, how success poisoned a soul, how pride destroyed a family, and how Jesus Christ, in one supernatural night, appeared to both men simultaneously and forced them to confront the devastating truth of what they had become. This is not an easy story. It will challenge you. It will convict you. It will break your heart. But it will also show you that redemption is possible even in the darkest moments, even in the coldest nights, even when it seems too late. David Thornton couldn't feel his feet anymore. That was probably a bad sign, he thought dimly. But the cold had numbed his mind along with his body. He sat in the recessed doorway of an abandoned building on West Madison Street, in what used to be a thriving commercial district, but was now just another forgotten corner of Chicago's homeless corridor. The doorway provided minimal shelter from the wind, but it was better than nothing. David had claimed this spot 3 weeks ago, after being kicked out of his previous location by a business owner who was tired of finding a homeless man sleeping in front of his shop. "Move along, old man," the owner had said. "You're bad for business." David had moved along. He always moved along. That's what homeless people did. They kept moving, kept being invisible, kept existing in the margins of society where the successful people didn't have to look at them. He pulled the sleeping bag tighter around his shoulders, but it was futile. The bag was old, torn in several places, offering little insulation. The newspapers he'd stuffed inside his coat helped somewhat, but not enough. Not on a night like this. David's breath came out in white clouds. His hands shook, constantly part from the cold, part from withdrawal. He hadn't had a drink in 3 days because he hadn't been able to panhandle enough money. His body was screaming for alcohol, but even that craving was being overwhelmed by the more immediate crisis. He was freezing to death. Is this how it ends? David thought distantly. Is this where I die? In a doorway, alone, frozen like a piece of garbage that nobody bothered to throw away. He had a daughter somewhere, Rebecca. She'd be 38 now. He hadn't seen her in 20 years. Didn't know if she was married, had kids, was even alive. She'd cut him off after the divorce, after the drinking got really bad, after he'd shown up drunk at her college graduation and made a scene. "You're an embarrassment," she'd told him, tears streaming down her face. "I can't have you in my life anymore. I just can't." He hadn't blamed her then. He didn't blame her now. And he had a son, Marcus, his firstborn, his pride and joy, once upon a time. But David tried not to think about Marcus. That pain was too deep, too raw, even after 15 years. A gust of wind howled through the street, and David curled into himself, trying to conserve what little body heat remained. His mind began to drift, a bad sign. He knew. When hypothermia sets in, the mind starts to wander. You get confused. You start to feel warm when you're actually freezing, and then you fall asleep, and you don't wake up. Maybe that's okay, David thought. Maybe it's time. I'm 68 years old. I'm an alcoholic. I'm homeless. I have no family, no friends, no future. What am I even living for? His eyes began to close. The cold didn't feel as bad anymore. In fact, he was starting to feel almost comfortable, sleepy, like he could just drift off and everything would be okay. That's when he saw the light. At first, David thought it was a street light, or maybe a car's headlights. But this light was different, warmer, brighter, more alive somehow. The light grew, stronger, and David squinted against it. A figure was approaching through the snow and wind, a man, walking steadily toward him, seemingly unbothered by the brutal cold. As the figure drew closer, David could make out details. The man was dressed in simple clothes, not winter gear, not heavy coat and gloves, just simple robes that somehow seemed to glow with their own warmth. The man's face was kind but serious. His eyes David couldn't stop looking at. His eyes held depths of compassion and sorrow that David had never seen in any human being. The man stopped directly in front of David's doorway and knelt down, bringing himself to David's level. "Hello, David," the man said, his voice cutting through the wind but somehow gentle. "Do you know who I am?" David's mind was foggy from the cold, but something in him recognized this presence. Something deep and primal and spiritual. "Jesus?" David whispered, not quite believing his own words. The man smiled sadly. "Yes, David, I am. Jesus. And I've come to talk with you before you make your final choice." Final choice? David's voice was weak, confused. "Whether to give up and die tonight," Jesus said simply, "or whether to hold on just a little longer." David looked away, ashamed. "Why would you care? I'm nobody. I'm a drunk, a failure, a homeless bum. I abandoned my family. I ruined my life. I'm worthless." "You're not worthless to me," Jesus said firmly. "You were created in my image. You are loved by me, and your story isn't finished yet." "Yes, it is," David said bitterly. "Look at me. I'm dying in a doorway. My son won't even acknowledge I exist. This is how my story ends." Jesus' eyes held such profound sadness that it made David's heart ache. "Your son," Jesus said quietly. "Yes, let's talk about Marcus." And suddenly, David wasn't in the doorway anymore. 3 miles away, Marcus Thornton stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse apartment, looking out over the glittering Chicago skyline. From this height, the city looked beautiful, a landscape of lights and architecture, success and ambition. From this height, you couldn't see the homeless people in doorways. You couldn't see the poverty, the suffering, the desperation. From this height, you could pretend those things didn't exist. Marcus took a sip of his wine, a 2015 Chateau Margaux that had cost him $800 a bottle, and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He'd just closed a major deal that day. His investment firm had made $3.2 million in profit. His personal commission was $400,000. Not bad for a day's work. At 42, Marcus had everything he'd ever dreamed of. A penthouse in one of Chicago's most exclusive buildings, a Ferrari in the garage, a vacation home in Aspen, a stock portfolio worth $15 million, respect in the business community, invitations to the right, parties, the right clubs, the right circles. He had built himself into a success story, from nothing to everything, self-made, self-reliant, self-sufficient. That's what he told people, anyway. What he didn't tell people, what he worked very hard to make sure people never found out, was where he'd actually come from. Marcus Thornton hadn't always been rich. He'd grown up in a modest middle-class household in a suburb of Chicago. His father, David, had been a high school math teacher. His mother, Linda, had been a librarian. They didn't have much money, but they'd been happy, until they weren't. Marcus was in college when his parents' marriage fell apart. His father had started drinking first socially, then heavily, then destructively. His mother had tried to hold things together, but eventually, she couldn't take it anymore. The divorce had been ugly. His father had lost his teaching job due to showing up drunk. His mother had remarried and moved to Florida. His younger sister, Rebecca, had sided with their mother, cutting their father off completely. And Marcus had tried to help at first. He'd given his father money, let him stay in his apartment, tried to get him into rehab, but David had relapsed. Again and again, he'd stolen from Marcus, embarrassed him in front of colleagues, made scenes at important events, The final straw had come 15 years ago. Marcus had just landed his first major job at an investment firm, his big break, his chance to climb the ladder. The firm was having a reception for new employees. Marcus's boss was there, important clients were there, and David had shown up, drunk, belligerent, demanding money from his son in front of everyone. "Marcus," he'd shouted across the elegant reception hall. "There's my boy, my successful boy who's too important to take his father's calls anymore." Marcus had felt his face burn with humiliation as every eye in the room turned to watch. His boss's expression had turned from impressed to concerned. Clients had begun whispering, "Dad, you need to leave," Marcus had said quietly, grabbing his father's arm and trying to steer him toward the exit. "Leave? Why should I leave? This is my son's party. I'm proud of him, even though he's ashamed of me. Dad, please, please, what? Please stop embarrassing you? Please stop existing? Is that what you want, Marcus? For me to just disappear?" Marcus had lost his temper then. Something in him had snapped. All the years of trying to help, all the money wasted, all the embarrassment and disappointment and anger had come pouring out. "Yes," he'd hissed. "Yes, that's exactly what I want. I want you to disappear. I want you to get out of my life. You're a drunk, Dad, a failure, and I'm tired of you dragging me down with you." The words had hung in the air between them. David's face had gone pale. The hurt in his eyes had been devastating. But Marcus hadn't taken the words back. He'd meant them. Or at least, he'd convinced himself he'd meant them. "Fine," David had said quietly. "If that's what you want, I'll disappear. You won't have to be embarrassed by your failure of a father anymore." And he had disappeared. Marcus had never seen him again, never tried to find him, never answered the few phone calls that came in the first year, never responded to the letter that arrived 2 years later, forwarded from an old address. He had cut his father out of his life completely, erased him, pretended he didn't exist, and he'd told himself it was the right thing to do. His father was toxic, destructive, a burden. Marcus had his own life to build, his own success to achieve. He couldn't let his father's failures hold him back. When people asked about his family, Marcus said his father had died years ago. It was easier than explaining the truth, cleaner, less complicated. Marcus had buried his father alive and convinced himself it was justified. Now, standing at his penthouse window on this freezing December night, Marcus pushed thoughts of his father away, as he'd done for 15 years. He finished his wine, set down the glass, and walked toward his bedroom. It was late. He had an early meeting tomorrow. Another deal to close, another million to make. But as he reached his bedroom door, something strange happened. The temperature in the apartment dropped suddenly. Marcus could see his breath misting in the air. "What the hell?" he muttered, looking toward the thermostat. But before he could check it, he felt a presence behind him. Marcus turned around. Standing in his living room, radiating a soft golden light that shouldn't have been possible, was a man in white robes. The man's face was both familiar and foreign, like someone Marcus had seen in paintings, but never expected to meet in person. Marcus's heart began to pound. His rational mind screamed that this was impossible, that he was having a stroke or a psychotic break or something. But his soul recognized the truth immediately. "Marcus Thornton," the man said, his voice filling the entire penthouse with authority and compassion. "I am Jesus Christ, and we need to talk about your father." Marcus's legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees on his expensive marble floor. Marcus knelt on his living room floor, his entire body shaking, staring up at the impossible figure before him. "This isn't real," Marcus whispered. "This can't be real. It's as real as your father dying in a doorway 3 miles from here," Jesus said, his voice gentle but carrying an edge that cut through Marcus's denial. "It's as real as the 15 years you've pretended he doesn't exist. It's as real as the lies you've told about him being dead." Marcus felt like he'd been slapped. "You don't understand. My father is a drunk, a failure. He chose alcohol over his family. He destroyed his own life." "Yes, he did," Jesus agreed. "He made terrible choices. He hurt people who loved him. He let addiction control him. All of that is true." Jesus knelt down so he was at Marcus's eye level. "But you know what else is true? He's your father. He gave you life. He loved you when you were a child. He taught you to ride a bike. to throw a baseball, to solve math problems. He sat with you when you were sick. He cheered at your games. He cried tears of pride when you graduated high school. That was before the drinking, Marcus said defensively. So his love only counted when he was perfect? Jesus asked. His years of sacrifice and dedication were erased by his failures? Marcus didn't answer. Come, Jesus said, extending his hand. I want to show you something. I want you to see the truth, all of it, not just the parts you've chosen to remember. Jesus touched Marcus's forehead, and suddenly the penthouse disappeared. Marcus found himself transported back in time, watching his own childhood unfold like a movie. He saw himself at age 7, sick with the flu, lying in bed. His father David sat beside him all night, reading stories, changing cold compresses on his forehead, checking his temperature every hour. It's okay, buddy, young David said softly. Dad's here. You're going to be fine. The scene shifted. Marcus, at age 10, struggling with math homework, frustrated, and crying. David sat at the kitchen table with him for 3 hours, patiently explaining fractions, never losing his temper, never giving up. You're so smart, Marcus, David said. You just need to see it from a different angle. Here, let me show you. Another shift. Marcus, at age 15, heartbroken because a girl had rejected him at a school dance. David took him out for ice cream at midnight, listened to him pour out his teenage angst, and offered wisdom. Son, rejection hurts, but it teaches you resilience. The right person will see who you really are, and you're going to be amazing. I believe in you. Marcus watched these scenes with tears streaming down his face. He'd forgotten these moments. He'd erased them from his memory, focusing only on the later years, the drinking, the disappointment. But Jesus wasn't done. The scenes shifted to the difficult years. Marcus watched his father spiral into alcoholism, but now he saw things he hadn't seen before or hadn't wanted to see. He saw his father sitting alone in the house after the divorce, holding a photo of his family, crying. He saw his father trying to quit drinking, attending AA meetings, making it 30 days sober before relapsing. He saw his father calling Marcus over and over, leaving voicemails that went unanswered. Marcus, son, I know I've messed up. I know I've disappointed you, but I love you. Please, just talk to me. Don't give up on me. He saw his father writing a letter, the letter Marcus had thrown away without reading, that said, Dear Marcus, I'm so proud of the man you've become. I'm sorry I couldn't be a better father to you. I understand if you can't forgive me, but please know that I love you. I always have. I always will. Dad, Marcus sobbed as he watched these scenes. He'd convinced himself his father didn't care, that he'd given up, that he deserved abandonment. But the truth was more complicated. His father had been broken, yes. Addicted, yes. But not uncaring, not unloving. Stop, Marcus begged Jesus. I can't watch anymore. You must, Jesus said firmly, because you need to see where your choices led. The scene shifted forward in time. Marcus watched his father's decline after he'd cut him off. David, unable to keep steady employment due to his addiction, slowly losing everything. His apartment, his car, his belongings. David, sleeping on friends' couches until those friends got tired of him. David, ending up in shelters, then on the streets. David, aging rapidly, his health deteriorating, his spirit breaking, and through it all, David trying to survive, panhandling, searching for food in dumpsters, sleeping in doorways, becoming invisible to the successful people who walked past him every day, people like Marcus. The vision slowed, focusing on a specific moment from 2 months ago. David was sitting on a street corner with a cardboard sign, Homeless Vet, anything helps, God bless. David wasn't actually a veteran, but he'd learned that claiming to be one increased the chances of getting money. It was a lie born of desperation. A businessman in an expensive suit walked past, barely glancing at David. The businessman's face was visible. It was Marcus. Marcus watched himself walk right past his father without even recognizing him. David's face was weathered, his beard overgrown, his body hunched. He looked nothing like the man Marcus had known. But Marcus had been too absorbed in his phone, too focused on his own world, to really look. Oh God, Marcus whispered, watching the scene. I walked right past him, I didn't even see him. You chose not to see him, Jesus corrected, because seeing him would have disrupted your carefully constructed life. It would have reminded you of the truth you were trying to escape. The vision shifted to tonight, to David, sitting in the doorway, freezing, dying. He's 3 miles from your penthouse right now, Jesus said. He's dying, Marcus. Hypothermia is shutting down his body. He has maybe an hour left, maybe less. Marcus looked at Jesus in horror. Then I need to go to him. I need to save him. Tell me where he is. I will, Jesus said. But first, you need to see one more thing.
Before we begin, if you believe in second chances and the power of faith, type "restore" in the comments right now. Let your voice be the spark of hope for a family in need. Show the world your faith in action.
The scene changed again. This time, Marcus found himself in a courtroom, but not a normal courtroom. This was the judgment seat of God. He saw himself standing before a throne of light, his entire life laid bare. Marcus Thornton, a voice thundered. You were given wealth, success, opportunity. What did you do with it? Marcus watched his future self try to answer. I built a successful business. I made millions. I achieved the American dream. And what about your father? My father. He was a drunk. He failed. I couldn't let him drag me down. Did I not say, honor your father and your mother? Did I not say, whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me? Your father was hungry, you ate expensive meals. Your father was homeless, you lived in a penthouse. Your father was dying on the street you slept in comfort 3 miles away. Marcus watched his future self struggle to respond. But I didn't know he was dying. You didn't know because you didn't want to. No, you erased him from your life. You told people he was dead. You built your success on the foundation of abandoning the man who gave you life. The judgment was devastating. Marcus watched himself being weighed and found wanting. And then he saw where that path led, not to the heaven he'd assumed he'd reach through his success and philanthropy, but to a darkness that terrified him. No, Marcus screamed. Please, I don't want that. I'll do anything. Give me another chance. The vision ended. Marcus was back in his penthouse, on his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Jesus knelt beside him. I'm giving you that chance right now, Marcus. Your father is dying. You have maybe 45 minutes to reach him. You can save his life if you choose to. Where is he? Marcus gasped. Tell me where he is. West Madison Street, in a doorway between Clark and LaSalle. But Marcus, Jesus gripped his shoulder. Saving his life is only the beginning. The real question is, are you willing to save your relationship, to humble yourself, to ask forgiveness, to care for him, not for a day or a week, but for the rest of his life? Marcus looked into Jesus' eyes. Yes, I'll do whatever it takes. Just please, don't let him die. Don't let him die thinking I hate him. Jesus smiled, a smile of such love and approval that it warmed Marcus more than any amount of earthly success ever had. Then go, right now. Don't change clothes. Don't grab your coat. Go exactly as you are. And remember, I'm not just with you. I'm with him too. I'm meeting both of you tonight. And then Jesus vanished, leaving Marcus alone in his penthouse. Marcus didn't hesitate. He ran. Marcus burst out of his apartment in his pajama pants and t-shirt, not even bothering with shoes. He sprinted to the elevator, frantically hitting the button. Come on, come on, come on, he muttered, his heart pounding. The elevator ride down from the 42nd floor felt like an eternity. Marcus paced like a caged animal, praying under his breath, praying for the first time in 15 years. Please, God, please don't let him die. Please give me time, please. The elevator doors opened to the parking garage. Marcus ran to his Ferrari, then stopped. No time. The keys were upstairs. Starting the car, navigating through traffic, it would take too long. He turned and ran toward the street instead. The December night hit him like a hammer. The temperature was in the single digits. The wind cut through his thin clothing instantly. He was barefoot on freezing pavement, but he didn't care. Marcus ran west on East Randolph Street, his feet already going numb on the icy sidewalk. A few late-night pedestrians stared at him, a man in pajamas, running barefoot through the freezing night, tears streaming down his face. He looked insane. He probably was insane, but he ran. West Madison Street was 3 miles away. 3 miles through downtown Chicago in sub-zero temperatures, barefoot, wearing nothing but pajamas. Marcus ran like his life depended on it. Because someone's life did depend on it. His father's life. The man he'd abandoned. The man he'd erased. The man who was dying right now because Marcus had been too proud, too ashamed, too selfish to care. Marcus's lungs burned. His feet screamed in agony. His body shook violently from the cold. But he kept running. "Dad, hold on," he gasped as he ran. "Please hold on. I'm coming. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry." He ran past the Art Institute, past Millennium Park, through intersections with the don't walk signals flashing. Cars honked. People yelled. Marcus didn't slow down. He turned north on LaSalle Street, then west on Madison. His feet were bleeding now, leaving red marks on the snowy sidewalk. He couldn't feel them anymore. His whole body was going numb. But he could see the doorways ahead, the stretch of abandoned buildings where the homeless congregated. "Dad!" Marcus shouted into the night. "Dad! Where are you?" He ran from doorway to doorway, looking at each homeless person huddled there, searching for his father's face. "David Thornton! Dad! It's Marcus! Where are you?" And then he saw him. In a doorway halfway down the block, barely visible in the shadows, was his father, motionless, covered in snow, not moving. "Dad!" Marcus screamed and ran toward him. He collapsed in the doorway, pulling his father into his arms. David's body was ice cold. His lips were blue. His breathing was barely perceptible. "Dad, can you hear me? Dad, it's Marcus. I'm here. I'm here." David's eyes fluttered open slightly. His gaze was unfocused, confused. He didn't seem to recognize Marcus. "Dad, it's me. It's your son. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't die. Please." Marcus pulled out his phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. 911. "What's your emergency?" "My father, he's homeless. He's dying from hypothermia. West Madison between Clark and LaSalle. Please send an ambulance." "An ambulance is on the way, sir. Stay on the line with me." Marcus dropped the phone and wrapped his body around his father, trying to share what little warmth he had left. He was freezing too. His feet were frostbitten. His body was shutting down, but he didn't care. He held his father and wept. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I love you. I've always loved you. I was just too proud to admit it. Please forgive me. Please don't leave me." David's eyes opened a little more. For the first time, there was a flicker of recognition. "Marcus?" His voice was barely a whisper, a rasp of disbelief. "Yes, Dad. It's me. I'm here. I'm not leaving you. I'm never leaving you again." David's frozen hand moved slightly, touching Marcus's face as if to confirm he was real. "You came." Tears formed in David's eyes, freezing on his weathered cheeks. "I came, Dad. I'm sorry I didn't come sooner. I'm sorry for everything." And then, in that freezing doorway, surrounded by the harsh realities of the streets, something miraculous happened. A warmth filled the space. Not a physical warmth, the air was still freezing, but a spiritual warmth that defied the cold. Marcus looked up and saw him. Jesus stood there in the doorway, his presence radiating light and love. But he wasn't alone this time. Beside him stood David, not the broken, homeless David dying in Marcus's arms, but a spiritual David, younger, healthier, whole. Marcus realized he was seeing his father in both forms simultaneously, the physical body dying in his arms, and the eternal soul standing with Jesus. "What's happening?" Marcus whispered. Jesus spoke, but his voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "You chose love over pride, Marcus. You humbled yourself. You came for your father when it mattered most. This is the fruit of repentance." The spiritual David looked at his physical body, then at Marcus, then at Jesus. "Is it my time?" spiritual David asked Jesus. Jesus shook his head gently. "Not tonight, David. Your son just ran 3 miles, barefoot through a Chicago winter to save your life. He's earned you both a second chance." He placed his hand on spiritual David's shoulder. "Go back. Live. Give your son the opportunity to love you. Give yourself the opportunity to be loved. Your story isn't finished yet." "But I'm a drunk," David said sadly. "A failure. I'll just disappoint him again." "You're not defined by your failures," Jesus said. "You're defined by my love for you." And Marcus isn't the same man who abandoned you 15 years ago. He's been broken and remade tonight. You both have. Jesus looked at Marcus. Take care of him, love him, honor him. And when the time comes when it's really his time to come home, he'll pass knowing he was loved. That's all anyone really wants. Sirens approached in the distance. The ambulance was coming. Jesus and spiritual David began to fade. But before they disappeared completely, David called out to Marcus. Thank you, son. I love you. I love you too, Dad, Marcus sobbed. I love you too. The ambulance arrived, and paramedics rushed to work on both David and Marcus. Both men were suffering from severe hypothermia. David's was life-threatening. Marcus's was serious but not critical. They were rushed to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, just blocks away. In the emergency room, doctors and nurses worked frantically to save David's life. We've got severe hypothermia, frostbite, malnutrition, dehydration, and probable pneumonia. One doctor rattled off. Start warming protocols, IV fluids, antibiotics. Get me a cardiac monitor. Marcus, wrapped in heated blankets in the next bay, refused to be separated from his father. I need to stay with him, Marcus insisted through chattering teeth. I just found him. I can't lose him now. A nurse looked at him with compassion. Sir, you need treatment too. Your feet. I don't care about my feet, Marcus said. Take care of my father first, please. The medical staff exchanged glances. It was clear this was more than just a homeless man being brought in. There was a story here. Over the next 6 hours, David slowly stabilized. The warming protocols worked. The IV fluids helped. The antibiotics began fighting the pneumonia. By dawn, David was conscious, stable, and moved to a regular hospital room. Marcus, his feet bandaged and his body finally warm, sat in a chair beside his father's bed. He hadn't left his side for a moment. David's eyes opened. He looked around the clean hospital room, confused, as if unable to believe he was there. Then he saw Marcus. You're still here, David whispered, his voice hoarse. I'm still here, Dad. I'm not going anywhere. Marcus, what happened? I remember being so cold. I remember you appearing, but I thought I was hallucinating. I thought I was dying. You were dying, Marcus said, taking his father's hand gently. But I got to you in time. Thank God, I got to you in time. David's eyes filled with tears. Why? After all these years, why did you come? Marcus took a deep breath. Because Jesus appeared to me last night. He showed me what I'd become. He showed me what I'd done to you. And he told me I still had time to make it right. He squeezed his father's hand. Dad, I have 15 years of apologies to make. 15 years of mistakes to own. I abandoned you. I told people you were dead. I walked right past you on the street 2 months ago and didn't even recognize you. Tears streamed down Marcus's face. I was so ashamed of you, Dad. So ashamed of your alcoholism, your failures, your poverty. And I let that shame destroy our relationship. I convinced myself it was your fault, that you deserved abandonment, that I was justified. But I wasn't justified. I was wrong. So horribly, terribly wrong. And I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. Can you forgive me? David cried silently. Decades of pain and longing and abandonment pouring out of him in those tears. Marcus, he finally whispered, I'm the one who should be apologizing. I chose alcohol over my present family. I ruined my marriage. I embarrassed you. I became everything a father shouldn't be. We both made mistakes, Dad, Marcus said gently, but we have a chance now. A second chance. Jesus gave us both a second chance, and I'm not going to waste it. David looked at his son, really looked at him, and saw something he hadn't seen in 15 years. Genuine love without conditions, without judgment, without shame. What happens now? David asked, almost afraid to hope. Now, Marcus smiled through his tears. Now you come home with me. Now I take care of you the way you took care of me when I was a child. Now I get to be the son I should have been all along. But Marcus, I'm homeless. I'm an alcoholic. You're my father, Marcus interrupted firmly. That's all that matters. Everything else we'll figure out together. Rehab, healthcare, housing, whatever you need. But Dad, I need you to know something. I'm not doing this out of obligation or guilt. I'm doing it because I love you. Because you're my father. Because Jesus showed me that family is sacred, and I threw away something precious. I want it back." David sobbed openly now, his frail body shaking with the force of emotions he'd suppressed for years. "I don't deserve this," he managed to say. "Neither do I," Marcus replied. "Neither of us deserves grace. But that's what makes it grace." A nurse entered the room, checking David's vitals, and smiled at the scene. "I don't know your story," she said softly. "But whatever happened last night, it was a miracle. Your father shouldn't have survived. The hypothermia was too severe. But here he is." "Here he is," Marcus echoed, squeezing his father's hand. "Thank God. Here he is." David had been in the hospital for 3 weeks. The hypothermia damage healed. The pneumonia cleared. The frostbite was treated. He'd lost 2 toes, but doctors said it could have been much worse. More importantly, David was clean. For the first time in 20 years, he was sober, truly sober. The hospital's detox protocol had been difficult, but Marcus had been there every day, holding his father's hand through the withdrawals, the shakes, the night terrors. "I'm proud of you, Dad," Marcus said one afternoon as they sat together in the hospital room. 21 days sober. "That's huge." "It's been 21 days before," David said cautiously. "I always relapse." "This time is different," Marcus said. "This time you're not doing it alone. This time you have someone fighting alongside you. We're going to beat this together, Dad. I promise." Marcus had arranged everything. He'd hired the best addiction counselor in Chicago. He'd secured a spot in an intensive outpatient rehab program. He'd cleared out one of his spare bedrooms, the one with the best view of the city, and furnished it for his father. He'd also called his sister, Rebecca, in Florida. That conversation had been difficult. "Rebecca, I know you're angry. I know you haven't talked to Dad in 20 years, but he almost died, and I almost let him die. I've spent 15 years pretending he doesn't exist, and I was wrong. So wrong." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, "Is he sober?" "He's working on it. He's in rehab. He's trying." "How many times have we heard that before, Marcus? This time is different. Jesus appeared to me. Becca, I know that sounds crazy, but it happened. He showed me what I'd become, and he's giving us all a second chance." Another silence. "Jesus appeared to you?" "Yes." "You're serious?" "Completely serious." Rebecca sighed deeply. "I need time, Marcus. I need to process this. But I'm glad you found him. I'm glad he's alive. Maybe we can talk." Eventually. It wasn't full reconciliation, but it was a start. Marcus would take it. On December 23rd, 5 days before Christmas, David was discharged from the hospital. Marcus arrived with a wheelchair, warm clothes he'd purchased in his father's size, and a nervous smile. "Ready to come home, Dad?" David looked at the clothes, brand new jeans, a soft flannel shirt, a heavy winter coat, and his eyes filled with tears again. "Marcus, you've spent so much on me already." "Dad," Marcus interrupted gently. "I'm worth $15 million. Money is not an issue. You are. Now get dressed. I want to show you your new room." The penthouse felt different when they entered it. Marcus had worried it might intimidate his father, might make him feel out of place. But David just stood in the entryway, looking around in wonder. "You've done so well for yourself, son," David said quietly. "I always knew you would." Marcus showed his father to the bedroom he'd prepared, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, a comfortable bed with high-quality linens, a bookshelf stocked with David's favorite authors Marcus had remembered, a desk with a new laptop, photos on the wall, pictures of Marcus as a child with David, images Marcus had found in storage and had professionally framed. This is mine?" David asked, overwhelmed. "This is yours, for as long as you want it, forever, if you want. This is your home now, Dad." David sat on the edge of the bed and broke down crying. Marcus sat beside him and put his arm around his father's shoulders. "I'm scared, Marcus," David admitted. "I'm scared I'll mess this up. I'm scared I'll start drinking again. I'm scared I'll disappoint you. Then we'll deal with it together," Marcus said. "Dad, I'm not expecting perfection. I'm expecting effort, and I'm promising you, no matter what happens, I'm not abandoning you again, ever. That's my commitment to you." He paused. "But I also believe in you, Dad. I believe you can beat this. With God's help, with professional support, with love, you can do this. I know you." David stood in front of a room full of people at an AA meeting on the north side of Chicago. He was 180 days sober, the longest stretch of sobriety he'd had in 23 years. "My name is David, and I'm an alcoholic," he began. "Hi, David," the room responded. "6 months ago, I was dying in a doorway on West Madison Street. I was homeless, broken, and convinced my life was over. I had no family, no hope, no reason to live." He paused, composing himself. "But that night, my son, who I hadn't seen in 15 years, who I thought hated me, who I'd abandoned through my addiction, came running through the streets to save my life. He ran 3 miles barefoot in the freezing cold because Jesus Christ appeared to him and told him I needed him." Several people in the room murmured. Some looked skeptical, others leaned forward, engaged. "I know that sounds crazy. Trust me, I know, but it happened, and it changed everything. My son saved my life that night, but more importantly, he saved my soul. He showed me I was still worth loving, still worth fighting for, still worth saving." David's voice broke. "I'm not going to stand here and tell you I haven't wanted to drink in the last 6 months, because I have, almost every day. Addiction doesn't just disappear, but what I will tell you is that having someone believe in you, someone fighting alongside you, someone who refuses to give up on you, that makes all the difference." He looked around the room at the other struggling addicts, the other broken people seeking redemption. "If you're here tonight and you feel hopeless, if you think you're too far gone, if you believe nobody cares whether you live or die, I'm here to tell you, you're wrong. God cares. And there's someone out there who needs you to keep fighting. Don't give up. Please don't give up." After the meeting, several people approached David to thank him for sharing. One man in particular, a younger guy, maybe 30, grabbed David's hand. "I was going to use tonight," the man said, tears in his eyes. "I had the stuff in my pocket, but your story, man, your story stopped me. Thank you." David hugged the stranger. "Stay strong, brother. One day at a time. We can do this." Marcus, who had been sitting in the back of the room he attended every meeting with his father, watched the interaction and felt his heart swell with pride. His father wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. He was helping others. He had found purpose. On December 18th, exactly 1 year after the night Jesus appeared to them both, Marcus and David stood together in the doorway where David had almost died. They'd brought flowers and had come to mark the anniversary of their miracle. "A year ago, I was convinced this was where my story ended," David said, looking at the grimy doorway. "Right here, frozen, alone, forgotten, and I was 3 miles away, living in luxury, pretending you didn't exist." Marcus added, 2 men, father and son, living in the same city, but completely separated. "And Jesus brought us back together," David finished. "He bridged the gap that I thought was unbridgeable." Marcus placed the flowers in the doorway, a memorial to the man his father had been, and a celebration of the man he'd become. "Dad, I need to tell you something," Marcus said. "I sold my investment firm." David looked at him in shock. "What? Why? You loved that business." "I loved the money," Marcus corrected. "I loved the status. But after everything that's happened, after everything Jesus showed me, I realized I was building my life on the wrong foundation, so I sold it. Made a fortune doing it, ironically." He smiled. "But here's what I'm doing with the money. I'm starting a foundation, the David Thornton Foundation for Homeless Recovery. We're going to build transitional housing, fund addiction treatment, provide job training, everything that could have helped you if someone had been there." David stared at his son in disbelief. "You're naming it after me?" "Of course I am. Dad, you're not a cautionary tale anymore. You're a success story. You're proof that redemption is possible, that it's never too late, that love can resurrect the dead. I want the world to know your story. I want other people to have the same second chance we had." David broke down, crying happy tears this time, tears of overwhelming gratitude and love. "I'm so proud of you, son," David said. "Not because of your money or your success. I'm proud of the man you've become, the man who values people over profit. The man who ran barefoot through the winter to save his father. That's the son I always prayed you'd be." They stood in that doorway together, father and son, holding each other, as Chicago bustled around them. A homeless man across the street watched them curiously. Marcus noticed and walked over. "Sir, are you hungry?" Marcus asked. The man nodded cautiously. "Come on, we'll get you food. And I want to tell you about something. About a program that can help. About a man who survived the streets and came back. About hope." The homeless man looked suspicious but followed. David came alongside them. "It's okay," David said to the stranger. "I was where you are a year ago, right there in that doorway. But Jesus met me there, and he can meet you too, wherever you are."
If this moment is touching your heart, share your story or a prayer request in the comments below. Someone watching may need the encouragement only you can give. Tag a friend who could use this message of hope today.
The David Thornton Foundation had helped 237 homeless individuals find housing and treatment in its first year of operation. 53 of them had successfully completed rehab. 38 had secured employment. 21 had reconnected with estranged family members. The statistics didn't tell the whole story, but they were a start. David worked at the foundation now not in administration, but in street outreach. Several nights a week, he went back to the places he'd slept, the places he'd panhandled, the places he'd nearly died, and he talked to the people still trapped there. "I was you," he'd tell them. "I know what it feels like to be invisible, to be considered trash, to be written off by society. But you're not trash. You're human beings created by God, and you're worth saving." His success rate was remarkable. When other outreach workers failed to connect, David succeeded because he spoke their language. He understood their pain. He'd lived their nightmare. Marcus split his time between running the foundation and spending time with his father. They'd become not just family, but best friends. They had breakfast together every morning. They attended church together every Sunday. They worked side by side in the mission of redemption. Rebecca had reconnected with them too. It had taken time, lots of therapy, lots of honest conversations, lots of tears, but she'd come around. She'd seen the genuine change in her father and had chosen forgiveness over resentment. Last Christmas, they'd all been together for the first time in 23 years. Rebecca, her husband, her 3 children, David, and Marcus, a family restored, broken pieces put back together by grace. On the 2-year anniversary of the night Jesus had appeared, the foundation held a gala fundraiser. Hundreds of Chicago's elite attended, drawn by curiosity about the mysterious Marcus Thornton who had walked away from Wall Street to help the homeless. David was asked to speak. He stood at the podium in a suit Marcus had bought him, looking out at a room full of wealthy, successful people, the kind of people who, 2 years ago, would have walked past him on the street without a second glance. 2 years ago, David began, his voice steady. I was dying in a doorway, convinced that my life had no value, no purpose, no meaning. I was an alcoholic, a failure, homeless, forgotten. He paused, scanning the room. Some of you walked past me. I don't blame you, I was invisible. That's what homelessness does. It makes you disappear while you're still alive. The room was silent, uncomfortable, but I didn't die that night. Because my son, Marcus, who I hadn't seen in 15 years, who had every reason to leave me there, came running, literally running, barefoot through a Chicago winter, because Jesus Christ appeared to him and told him his father needed him. Some people shifted in their seats, others leaned forward. I'm not here to convince you that Jesus appeared today, my son. Believe it or not believe it, that's between you and God. But what I will tell you is this: love is real, redemption is real, second chances are real, and every person you pass on the street, every homeless individual you see, every addict you write off, they're all somebody's father, somebody's son, somebody's daughter. They're all created by God. They're all worth saving. David's voice grew stronger. This foundation exists because my son decided that profit wasn't more important than people, because he decided that success meant nothing if it came at the cost of his humanity, because he chose to honor his father even when his father was dishonorable. He looked directly at Marcus, who was sitting in the front row with tears streaming down his face. Son, you saved my life. But more than that, you gave my life meaning. You showed me that it's never too late to start over, never too late to be loved, Never too late to come home. He turned back to the audience. So I'm asking you tonight, who have you abandoned? Who have you written off? Who have you decided isn't worth your time, your resources, your love? Because I promise you that person is praying for a miracle. That person is hoping someone will care. That person is waiting for someone to run through the cold to save them. David stepped back from the podium. Don't wait 15 years like my son did. Don't wait until someone is dying in a doorway. Go now. Make it right. Because Jesus gave us a command. Love one another. Not love the people who are easy to love. Not love the people who make you look good. Love one another. All of us. Especially the ones society has forgotten. The room erupted in applause. People were crying. Checkbooks were coming out. But more importantly, something was shifting in hearts. Marcus could see it in people's faces. Conviction, recognition, the dawning realization that they'd been living the same way he had, prioritizing the wrong things, abandoning the people who needed them most. After the gala, as Marcus and David drove home together, David turned to his son. Do you ever think about that night? David asked. Really think about it? Jesus appearing to you? Every day, Marcus said. Every single day. It changed everything, Dad. It showed me what really matters. Do you think he appears to other people? David wondered. Do you think he's still doing miracles like that? Marcus thought about it. I think he's always appearing to people. Maybe not always as dramatically. Maybe not always visibly. But I think he's constantly reaching out. Constantly knocking on doors. Constantly trying to save us from ourselves. He glanced at his father. The question isn't whether he's appearing. The question is whether we're willing to see him. Whether we're willing to respond when he shows us truth we don't want to face. David nodded. I'm grateful he appeared to you, son. I'm grateful you listened. Me too, Dad, Marcus said, reaching over to White, squeeze his father's hand. Me too. They drove in comfortable silence for a moment. Then David spoke again. Marcus, I need to tell you something. Something I've been thinking about a lot. What's that? When I was dying in that doorway, before you arrived, Jesus appeared to me too. Marcus nearly swerved the car. What? You never told me that. I know. I wasn't sure if it was real or if I was hallucinating from the hypothermia, but I've thought about it every day since, and I know it was real. He was there with me, Marcus. He sat beside me in that doorway. What did he say? David smiled at the memory. He asked me if I was ready to give up, and I told him I was. I told him I had nothing left to live for. And you know what he said? What? He said, your son is coming. Hold on just a little longer. He's running to you right now. And when he gets here, you're both going to understand what love really means. Marcus pulled the car over, unable to see through his tears. He turned to his father. He was with both of us that night, Marcus whispered. At the exact same time, he appeared to both of us. He was bridging the gap, David said. 3 miles separated us physically. 15 years separated us emotionally. But he crossed that distance in both directions. He came to you in your penthouse, and he came to me in my doorway. Because that's what he does. He goes to where we are, meets us in our brokenness, and brings us back together. Father and son sat in the car, holding each other, crying tears of gratitude for a miracle they were still discovering new dimensions of. 2 years later, David Thornton died peacefully in his sleep at age 73, 5 years after the night he almost froze to death. He died sober. He died loved. He died surrounded by family. He died with purpose and meaning and dignity. Marcus was holding his hand when he passed. I love you, Dad, Marcus whispered as his father's breathing slowed. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Thank you for forgiving me. Thank you for teaching me what really matters. David's eyes opened one last time. He smiled that peaceful smile of someone who knows where they're going. See you soon, son, he whispered. Jesus is here. He's been here all along, and he's taking me home now. And then he was gone. Marcus sat with his father's body for a long time, crying, grieving, but also celebrating, because his father hadn't died alone in a doorway, forgotten and abandoned. He died loved, honored, surrounded by family who cherished him. At David's funeral, over 500 people attended, colleagues from the foundation, people David had helped off the streets, church members, family, friends. Marcus gave the eulogy. "My father was a broken man who became a whole man," Marcus said, looking out at the crowd. He struggled with addiction for most of his adult life. He lost everything: his career, his marriage, his home, his dignity. And for 15 years, he lost his son. He paused, composing himself. "But 5 years ago, on the coldest night of my life, Jesus Christ appeared to both of us and gave us a miracle. He showed us that it's never too late for redemption, never too late for reconciliation, never too late for love." My father spent his last 5 years helping other people find the hope he found. He saved lives. He restored families. He showed people that God doesn't give up on us, even when we've given up on ourselves. Marcus looked at his father's casket. "Dad, you taught me something in these last 5 years that all my success and money never could. You taught me that people matter more than profit, that family is more important than reputation, that love is the only thing we take with us when we leave this world." He smiled through his tears. "You died sober, Dad. You died loved. You died with purpose. And you died knowing that your son, the son who abandoned you, who denied you, who pretended you were dead, ran through the freezing night to save you. And we had 5 beautiful years together. 5 years I will treasure for the rest of my life. Until we meet again, Dad, Jesus is with you now. And someday, He'll bring us back together. I believe that. I know that. Because He's in the business of reuniting families. It's what He does. This story is about many things. It's about a father who struggled with addiction and lost everything. It's about a son who chose success over family and nearly lost his soul. It's about a society that makes people invisible when they become inconvenient. But ultimately, it's about a God who refuses to let us go, who pursues us into penthouses and doorways, who appears to us in our moments of greatest crisis and offers us one more chance. Marcus Thornton ran 3 miles barefoot through a Chicago winter. That's dramatic. That's cinematic. That's the kind of thing that makes for a powerful story. But here's the truth. Most of us will never be asked to do something that dramatic. Most of us will face much simpler, quieter choices. Will you call your estranged parent? Will you visit the family member everyone else has written off? Will you forgive the person who hurt you? Will you humble yourself and ask for forgiveness from someone you've hurt? Will you choose relationship over reputation? These aren't dramatic. They don't make for good movies. But they're just as important, just as transformative, just as sacred. The Bible says, honor your father and mother. Not honor them if they're perfect. Not honor them if they make you proud. Just honor them, because family is sacred. Parenthood is sacred. The people who gave us life deserve our respect and care even when they've failed, even when they've disappointed us, even when they've hurt us. That doesn't mean staying in abusive relationships. That doesn't mean enabling destructive behavior. But it does mean not abandoning people, not writing them off, not pretending they're dead when they're still alive. If you're watching this and you have a parent you've cut off, Jesus is asking you right now, when are you going to run through the cold to save them? Don't wait until they're dying in a doorway. Don't wait until it's too late. Go now. Make the call. Send the message. Build the bridge. Because someday, maybe tomorrow, maybe in 50 years, you'll stand at their funeral, and you'll either regret the years you wasted, or you'll celebrate the time you had. The choice is yours. But remember, Jesus is in the business of redemption. He specializes in restoring what's been broken. He delights in reuniting what's been separated. He appeared to Marcus and David because he loved them both. He loves you too, and he's offering you the same miracle, a second chance. Don't waste it.
Subscribe to Tales of God's Grace for more true miracles and stories of redemption. Your support helps us reach and restore families around the world. Don't forget to tag a friend and share this video, so together we can spread faith, love, and healing where it's needed most.